There is a place between the American Great Plains and the Pacific Ocean that is a world all its own. Welcome to the Rocky Mountains. Our story begins before the age of dinosaurs. 1.8 billion years ago. The oldest rocks in these mountains formed from cooling magma. From about 542 million to 251 million years ago, the area was under constant change as the Earth lifted and sank, eventually forming a shallow sea that ran from the Gulf of Mexico to the Arctic Ocean. And 70 million years ago, the Rocky Mountains began to rise. As mammals began to take their place among the dominant animals of our planet, the Rockies uplifted from the Earth and were carved apart by giant glaciers, such as these in Iceland today. The new North American continental divide created all new weather patterns, ecosystems, and species. And until the last 150 years or so, these mountains have stayed relatively wild and free. The Rocky Mountains are now a collection of some of the most visited tourist destinations in the United States year-round. From spring wildlife viewing and summer climbing and hiking to autumn color photography and winter snow sports, there are very few untouched places left. Among these majestic peaks is a town nestled in a small valley that I call home, Estes Park. At the end of town lie the gates of Rocky Mountain National Park. 415 square miles of rugged terrain designated as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in 1976, 61 years after its designation as America's 8th national park in 1915. In our small town of about 6,000 people, the park draws through over 4.5 million visitors annually. While having a national park is a huge draw, our town is not unique in traffic among the small mountain towns that dot the peaks and valleys of the Rockies. From Albuquerque to the Yukon, millions of visitors from around the world flock to some of the most iconic peaks on the planet every year, right here in the Rockies. Everything from ancient cliff dwellings and petroglyphs to rustic cabins and the quest for gold and riches can be found here. Perhaps most commonly, many visitors seek exhilarating up-close encounters with wildlife and the unfathomable beauty of our mountain views as a break from the daily grind of city and suburban life. These mountains are no more than a day's drive from anywhere in the continental United States, but they feel like a different world entirely. When peaks begin to emerge from the horizon, you'll be greeted by the wildlife that survives upon the plains watered by the mountains. Bison, pronghorn antelope, prairie dogs, and mule deer dot the area. As you climb higher, the climate, ecosystem, and their inhabitants begin to change. Ascending into the high country brings more dramatic terrain and fewer homes, buildings, and people. Without humans consuming every square inch of the environment, wildlife thrive. These mountain goats are not native to Colorado, and in fact are not even true goats. Introduced to Colorado in 1947 to help recover the species present in the more northern Rocky Mountains, they thrive on mosses, grasses, and small plants that grow on the high-elevation alpine tundra above the tree line. Each spring, pregnant females will give birth to 1 or 2 kids. Much like a good hiking boot, these mountain goats have wide feet with strong hooves that grip onto the mountain terrain, enabling them to successfully feed, mate, and avoid predators in this unforgiving environment. But in this case, they may be a little too successful. In many areas where mountain goats have been introduced, they are beginning to outcompete the native bighorn sheep. Bighorn sheep are commonly mistaken for mountain goats, but differ in appearance significantly. While they are adapted to survive and thrive in steep, high-altitude environments with similar hooves, eat similar food, and battle for mates with their horns, they lack the aggression and immune system to compete with these mountain goats for food and habitat where they cross paths. Mountain goats tend to be more self-assured and will readily attack even humans to defend themselves and their kin when they feel threatened. While direct conflict for habitat and food resources has not yet been observed by researchers, it can be inferred that due to the extreme elevation and inaccessible terrain where they live, we may never understand exactly how these two species directly interact with each other. What we do know is that goats have been incredibly successful from introduction and recovery programs, and these hardier animals can often carry and transmit pneumonia to bighorn sheep, an illness which often causes death for the sheep. Fortunately for bighorn sheep, they are able to thrive in conditions other than high-altitude tundra, and can often be found far below in nearly any environment with steep, rocky cliffs where they can feed and avoid predators. But both animals are beginning to feel the pinch of human impact. As homes, businesses, and tourist areas become more widespread and populated, these two species are continually shoved into smaller habitats. In places where humans cross paths with these animals, they are routinely harassed by throngs of visitors that view accessibility as a metaphor for petting zoo. It seems that no matter how many videos of wild animals attacking humans get posted on the internet, we just can't leave them alone for the sake of social media photos. Along with the continued physical push of humans in their environment, our impact lasts longer than our brief visit to the summit. Litter adorns roadways, trails, streams, and lakes, even at over 12,000 feet. The fact of the matter is that there are no evil villains cackling as they pollute these rare and special areas. This is left by visitors that claim to love these wild places as they hike, climb, camp, and explore this special place. It isn't Walmart or Amazon hauling tons of garbage from their corporate operations up here. It's us. For decades, institutions of all stripes have been preaching variations on the leave no trace principle. One of these variants is to leave your destination better than you found it. If we boil this down to its simplest form, we find that we only need to remove one single piece of litter from our destination to leave it better than we found it. So I'm asking you to join me in removing just one piece of litter when you go outside. We're often told that these problems can only be tackled by large institutions, but this litter lands on the ground one piece at a time, and that's just how we can remove it. If the 70% of Americans that are planning summer travel in 2021 each picked up one single piece, we could clean up nearly 250 million pieces of litter in just one summer. And the majestic wildlife here will thank you for it. Below the tundra, a world of green shelters hundreds of species of mammals, birds, amphibians, fish, and even a few reptiles. Under aspen, ponderosa, and lodgepole pines, it's surprisingly easy to find elk, moose, mountain lion, bobcat, and black bears. These Rocky Mountains hold millions of years of evolution on their slopes, where life is divided into incredibly specific forms to create a balanced ecosystem. Animals large and small, expected and unexpected, wander these mountains in search of food, shelter, and mates. 2021 has so far been an exceptional year for wildlife viewing in Colorado's Front Range communities. In particular, moose have begun to cross into incorporated Estes Park, an area where they have rarely been seen before. These Shiras moose can weigh up to 1,200 pounds and are Colorado's largest game animals. Impressive as they may be, these are in fact the smallest of all moose species in the world. Still, they are as imposing as they are dangerous. Even though moose are members of the deer family, they lack the fear of humans that characterizes the typical personality of so many others such as whitetail and mule deer. When they feel threatened, moose will charge other animals such as dogs and humans, often causing serious injury or death. But like most wildlife, moose often choose to live a quiet, peaceful life. Every spring, pregnant females give birth to their calves, which, like bison, are also born a reddish-brown color. Over time, their fur will darken to match the woody wetlands they prefer. They will often stay with their mother until the next calf is born. These willows are their preferred food, and they can often be found lying down amongst them. Just like us, moose are sensitive to weather shifts, including hot summer days. They can most reliably be viewed at sunset and sunrise, grazing in wetlands, working their schedule around the heat of the day. This young moose has grown so much in the past year, and its mother is pregnant again. Feeding like this with its protective mother will come to an end. Soon, it will venture into the world on its own, likely calling the Kawanichi Valley its home for life over the next 20 years. For the most part, moose are fairly tolerant of humans viewing them from a distance, even with their newborns. But even viewing from a safe distance can create curiosity among younger moose that will approach to investigate people. As dangerous as younger moose can be by themselves, their mothers will immediately defend their young from most predators, including people. Here at the headwaters of the Colorado River, snowmelt from thousands of feet higher descends into the Comanche Valley, a flat plain at 9,000 feet nestled between the peaks of Rocky Mountain National Park and the Never Summer Wilderness. Named for its ever-present coyote population by the Arapaho Native Americans that once lived here before white settlers, it is known as one of the most reliable areas for moose viewing in most of the continental United States. On this western side of the Continental Divide, moose are not the only reliable residents of the area. Though smaller in stature than moose, Rocky Mountain elk are often seen roaming in enormous herds across this plentiful landscape. Feeding on grass, flowers, and other nutritious plants, these massive members of the deer family can weigh up to 900 pounds with antlers spreading up to 4 feet and weighing up to 40 pounds by themselves. The massive weight of these appendages can be attributed to their distinctive differences from horns. Most horns in the animal kingdom that are found on the skulls of sheep, goats, and the like are comprised of keratin, the same substance as human hair and fingernails. Among North American animals, these horns are permanent and continue to grow throughout the lifespan of the animal, making horn size a reliable indicator of animal health and age. In deer species, antlers are made of bone and are shed and regrown by males every year, including moose and elk. Over the course of one summer, these antlers can grow up to 1 inch per day. This incredible expenditure of energy requires a lot of food. The nutrients from their feeding are carried by a thin layer of fuzzy skin on the outside of their antlers known as velvet. This velvet covers the antlers until the autumn mating season, the rut. Males, known as bulls, will be seen sparring and rubbing their antlers in late summer and early autumn on trees and brush to remove their velvet. Once the velvet is removed, it's time for battle. For cow elk, size matters. Large antler size is an indicator of superior genetics, resources, and overall health of the males. These large groups of female elk will group together in harems to mate with the largest bull elk in any given area so that their calves will have the best chance at survival. Bulls must fight constantly to maintain their status against others that will attempt to take their harem of females, by force if necessary. The success of the Rocky Mountain elk's exploding population means they are found not only on the western slopes, but throughout mountain areas in the continental United States, from Arizona and New Mexico to Montana, with other elk subspecies and reintroduced Rocky Mountain elk populations found across the United States.